Beating hearts don't lie. An empty page, a story to write. I'm in love, you're divine, and it's all in our signs. We're going away. Get your bag, check the tag. Decision is made. Lock your door, need no more. It's already paid. Cancel your mail for a while. It's a journey for life, and I'm your ride. Hang on, we'll be long gone. Hang on, I cannot go wrong. God, I'm praying I'm not alone in this air of hope. 'Cause I'm in love, you're a star, burning bright in my heart. We're going away. Get your bag, check the tag. Decision is made. Lock your door, need no more. It's already paid. Cancel your mail for a while. It's a journey for life, and I'm your ride. Hang on, we'll be long gone. Hang on, I cannot go wrong. We're going away. Get your back, check the tag. Journey for life, and it's already paid. Cancel your mail for a while. It's a journey for life, and I'm your ride. Hang on, we'll be long gone. Hang on, I cannot go wrong. Hang on, we'll be long gone. Hang on, I cannot go wrong. God, I'm praying I'm not alone in this air of hope. A journey for life, alright. No, 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 no.
Oh, wow. What was that? Oh, my word. I don't know what to do with that. Hi, I'm Nate Manahan, and live from Indianapolis, Indiana. This is Ask a Doctor for MG Wellness. And in behind me, well, it's our dear friends, Dr. John and Dr. Kelly. How are you, Dr. John, Dr. Kelly?
We're great.
Hey, we're doing great.
So, as people are watching and starting to be a little fearful, May is here. So look, Sabrina says she's looking forward to this topic. But let's start out just a little bit with, what is Dr. John wearing tonight? And is he thinking of going snipe hunting?
There really are snipes, by the way. Anyway, I'm just getting ready for everything to open up. I've got my protection on. I've got glasses, got the shield. And even when I take it off, I still have the mask. So I'm just getting ready for the world to open up to its new normal. I've never been normal, so.
That's for darn sure. We ordered the mask online, and this bad boy is what came. And so, I don't know if we're robbing a bank or if we're protecting ourselves.
I think I'm going motocrossing. Because Lord knows that wouldn't end up in a bad way.
He now has a smashed nose. So hopefully it'll reconform to its normal position.
Its normal broken position. Perfect.
Oh boy, what a night's going to be. We are excited to talk about how to read labels. And we were just asking a second ago, labels have not always been self-explanatory. They were not always regulated. And so I asked this question before we even started. How did that happen? I know Dr. John looked it up a little bit. How long have we actually had regulated labels and how they need to be used in the United States here?
So in 1990,
the Nutrition Labeling Education Act was passed by Congress. But it wasn't until 94 that the Department of Health and Human Services really created the label that we all know and love now. And interestingly, as is typical with lobbying being involved in everything Congress does, they were allowed to have certain things placed on the front of foods like low calorie, light,
Misleading things that we'll talk about.
light, low fat, less sugar, natural.
Right. So we'll talk about all those things, but since
1990, it was passed. 94 is the current label that we use and are still using 26 years later. 26 years later, sorry.
Yes, 26.
Bad math. That's what happens when my head's covered.
All right. All right. So let's start out. And at some points, I think we have some slides that we're going to use, but we have some beginning questions that Dr. John and Dr. Kelly preloaded. And again, I should probably go ahead and just say at any point tonight, you can share. Just stop and share. Click the share button right now, and you'll be able to share it with your friends on Facebook. If you're on YouTube watching, you can share it there. Give us a little like, and make sure you subscribed. If you haven't liked Facebook, MG Wellness on Facebook, you can do that. But sharing is caring. Oh, man, that sounded great. All right, and then next, you can make sure that you can ask a question at any time. I'm getting into all the comments. I'm starting to see them. I can bring them up on the screen and ask Dr. John and Dr. Kelly. And lastly, we just hope you enjoy your time. May you laugh a little bit. And, as May says here, masks make me feel like I'm suffocating, and dogs, my glasses, can doctor breathe. I think we learned that he had to take it off, so we'll let him take that for himself.
oxygen was not flowing.
But let's start. Let's explain as a whole, what does the nutritional label mean?
Dr. Kelly?
So the nutritional label is, are you manning the slides or am I?
Yep, they're up. Now they're up.
Okay. The nutritional label is something that tells us lots and lots of different information. So in the yellow section is the serving size. Now, I'm telling you what right now.
I think we call that maize.
Yes.
The maize section.
The maize section,
Okay.
as in maize and blue, as in University of Michigan. Yes. How could we say anything else?
Hail to the victors.
Hail to the victor.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
The maize section is serving size.
Serving size is a really, really important section to pay attention to. It is a way that they can get you. So, often when we're looking at a bag of Doritos, we're not looking at the serving size that says 7 chips. We think that the entire bag has 170 calories, when really the bag may contain 14 servings of 170 calories each.
Is that a problem?
It's a huge problem.
Oh, okay.
So, the deal is, what you have to do is pay attention to the serving size. So this particular thing says it's 1 cup. But there are a lot of things that will say either the amount of chips, or they'll say a 1/4 cup.
But one of the important things from what you're saying already is that it says 1 cup, but there's 2 servings in the package.
Right. So if 1 cup equals 250 calories, which is that blue section, the calorie section, then 2 cups, you could have the entire whatever it is for 500 calories. Okay? So to get the total calories in the bag, you just do a little simple multiplication of the servings per container times the calories. That's all you do. Okay.
Make sure you don't have a mask on so you don't overheat.
That's correct. And then in the right part of the blue section, the calorie section, they tell you the calories from fat. Now, I'm telling you that is misleading because it doesn't tell you if it's good fats or bad fats, and that makes a big, huge difference. Next section, the green section, is all about carbohydrates. All about fats, cholesterol, and then also included in that section is sodium. So under the fats, they give you the total fat grams. It doesn't tell you if it's good fats or bad fats. And then they'll talk about saturated fats and trans fat. You do not want anything that has trans fat in it.
And trans fat's very misleading because not only will it not always say trans fat, sometimes it'll say partially hydrogenated.
Yes, hydrogenated oils. You don't want those either. So trans fat is bad. Just, you want that to be 0.
And not all saturated fat is bad.
Correct.
We
Correct.
are taught to think that saturated fat equals bad. But short chain triglycerides, short chain fats, and medium chain fats
are good for you. Cholesterol. Okay. We talked about this several weeks ago, but one of the things that is really important to understand is that cholesterol that you eat is different from cholesterol that's in your bloodstream. I know that's hard to believe. But cholesterol that you eat does not dramatically change the cholesterol level that is in your bloodstream. What changes the cholesterol level, mind-blowing
in your bloodstream,
mind-blowing moment, what changes your cholesterol in your bloodstream is high fructose corn syrup.
Dun, 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 dun.
I know it doesn't make any sense. Just trust that. We're doctors. Just trust us. That's hilarious.
So,
okay.
I mean, to say it in a very simple way, high fructose corn syrup overloads the body's ability to deal with sugar, and the body turns all of that into
fat,
cholesterol.
Into cholesterol fat. Okay, the next section is carbohydrates. And in carbohydrates are 2 things. Fiber, which is a good thing, and then sugars. And then sometimes under sugars, it'll say added sugars, which you don't want that. So the sugars are what's really, really important to control. And the dietary fiber, you want a lot of it. You will see in this that there is 0 grams of dietary fiber, which I'm not surprised because there's 3 grams of trans fat. So it's a garbage food. So we'll talk in a little bit about how much fiber each of us should be having every day. We in America, we're not even close. The next section, the purple section, is all of those vitamins and minerals that they have likely processed and added to the food to make it less toxic, so to speak.
Because what often happens with processed foods, whether it's store-bought bread, rice, whatever, is that they process out everything good.
Yep.
And then they add back.
Which is just insanity, right? Yes. That little pink section along the right side, that's all about the percentage of the recommended daily value. Now, that pink section.
Pink?
On the right. The pink section.
The salmon color?
Okay, salmon color. And the white section at the bottom, the footnote. These can be very misleading as well. All of these values are based upon the American recommended diet, yuck, of 2,000 calories a day, yuck. And because calories, we know calorie counting doesn't work because you can have all bad 2,000 calories. And so just understand that those percentages and that footnote at the bottom are based upon things that we don't really want to base things upon. And we want to get all those added vitamins and minerals from whole foods that we're eating. Now, the one thing I do want you to pay attention to in the pink section is the sodium. In processed foods, sodium is extremely high because they add a lot of salt to foods to preserve them. And so in this particular food item, you'll see 20% of 1 cup of whatever this is, 20% of your daily allowed allowed sodium is in that, which is extraordinary. And you don't want that much sodium in something that you're eating. So that is the overview of the nutritional label.
All right. So let's kind of continue on with what we're talking about here. And what are all these things that are being added in? So we mentioned that we can add in all the different, vitamins just to fake that the food actually has some nutritional value. We can crush up something and throw it in there and just give it a little push. But what are some of those additives that we absolutely do not want that they're disclosing in the back of the ingredients in the nutritional display?
Okay. I'm going to advance this.
Yeah.
Yep. Is it up for them to see?
It will be.
Okay. So I've made this little list here for you guys to see. We are going to post this on the Facebook page and Instagram page for you guys to see. I pulled out the ones that are really, really yucky toxic. Now, I gave a link at the bottom. Food Babe does some decent work. We get some things from that site, not infrequently. And there's a very extensive list there. I don't want to put all that up here and make you guys feel like you can never eat anything again. But these things that are listed are things that are really, really toxic for your system. These are all signs of processed foods. And these are all the things that, and I've given the abbreviations as well, because sometimes they trick you by not giving you the abbreviations.
Lots of times. Like the way they will hide, for instance, sugars under a million different names.
Yes. And so you just have to know kind of the buzzwords and some of the abbreviations, the colors, all of the different names for artificial sweeteners, the parabens. We've talked before about all the things that end in ITE and ATE. You'll see the nitrites and nitrates, the benzoates. These are all things that if you see them in something that you're reading the ingredients of, the microscopic print underneath the nutritional label, run quickly.
Run away.
Yes, just run away from that. Do not have anything to do with that. Remember the other thing too, antibiotics and pesticides, you're not going to see that in the ingredients, but you're going to know that, hopefully, from learning how to read the front of the package correctly. And then the enriched or bleached flour, we've told you before that enriched does not mean that it is rich in nutrients. Enriched is terrible. So just be aware of anything. I don't even care if it's whole wheat enriched or whole wheat bleached flour. That is bad for you. And that's when they add back the 17 other processed vitamins and minerals to try and make it have value again. So that's the list of additives that we would want you to avoid.
So why do they make these packages so hard to understand? What the wording and all the words they use, big word. Why is this confusing? And what's the fastest way? Is it always just Dr. Google to figure out what these things really are?
Well, we hope that you'll use this abbreviated list from MG Wellness to kind of guide you, and links that we provide to things that are rational. The reason that our foods are processed in this way is to create masses of food that can sit on shelves for extended periods of time. And that is the purpose.
One of the interesting things, because John loves being controversial, one of the interesting things is that these foods have actually led to portions of the problem of what we're dealing with now, because all of these additives help destroy your gut microbiome and therefore make your immune system
sick.
And it won't work as well. And it increases your body weight.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was just going to say. I read another article yesterday. I mean, there's tons of articles on this topic, but I read another article on the leading cause of problems in the United States with the pandemic for Americans is obesity. That is the most complicating factor, and there were some physicians discussing the fact that in the final analysis of the tragedy that's fallen on our country, there will be significant evidence that obesity was a major complicating factor. And so avoiding things like this, avoiding foods that can sit on the shelf for long periods of time without rotting.
If your food doesn't rot, don't eat it.
Yes. If the food doesn't rot, then it's plastic and totally made out of fake ingredients. And
honestly, to be completely honest, we actually don't know how healthy it is. When the FDA or the USDA says that it's not toxic, it just means that it is
less,
not immediately toxic to most people.
Right.
And in fact, the vast majority of things have never been studied. When you really look it up, what it says is generally regarded as safe.
GRAS. That is an abbreviation used by the FDA. Generally regarded as safe means we haven't tested it, and so we don't know. And so
I'll tell you some stories about generally regarded as safe. So the person who, or the food scientist who claimed originally that sucralose, aspartame had zero effect on blood sugar and that they were very healthy, and he's the one that's quoted for the FDA for generally regarded as safe for those topics. He actually was paid and was an employee of a company that made one of the sweeteners.
Sure.
So, you're asking the people that make the stuff whether or not it's safe, whether or not it's addicting, whether or not it affects blood sugar.
So the point is this: if you buy foods to consume that either don't have a label, does a tomato have a label? Does a green apple have a label? No, they don't have a nutritional label. So if you consume foods that do not have labels, because it is clear what it is, or if you strive to buy things in boxes, bags, and cans that have 1, maybe 2, maximum 3 lines of ingredients, that is best. That's how you can protect yourself from eating bad foods and being sick and ill.
If when you're reading the ingredient list, first of all, basically the 3 first ingredients are the only things in significant numbers. So if you're trying to get something that has healthy grains in it and grain is listed number 7, you're not getting it. And if that ingredient label reminds you of high school chemistry,
don't eat it. Don't eat it, because it is a chemistry experiment. It is. That's what it's doing on the shelf.
And pretty much, to be honest, it's a failed chemistry experiment if you look at the U.S.
Yes. So that's the scoop on additives that we want you to avoid.
And I think that you would agree with this statement, but Donna was sharing up. Let's see, I didn't quite see if it's in there. But Donna said we can get everything we need by shopping at the outskirts of the grocery store, and not just the aisles. In fact, you can skip the aisles all by itself. I mean, that is something
unless you're
very
trying
true.
to get toilet paper.
Well, and even that, they're usually on the aisles if they have any, because they're gone pretty quick. But
Yep. Basically, the only section that we Explore now of the aisles is the spices. So we get a lot of spices to put in our food. And the almond butter, either the fresh grinder or there are certain stores that sell almond butter in plastic tubs that literally the only ingredient is almonds. There's no palm oil, there's no sugar, there's no added salt. It is literally ground up almonds. Obviously, we like
So
it
that's
fresh
not
better.
almond milk then.
Not almond milk.
Yeah, I've always wondered how you milk an almond.
Very
It
carefully.
is tough. Well, let's talk about what fiber you really are supposed to have in your body before, and we're looking for more questions as you guys are jumping in. I see the numbers are growing now as you guys are in on a Wednesday night here, so please put your questions and comments in the chat sections here on Facebook and YouTube. But you talked earlier about that we don't eat enough fiber. How much fiber do we need to make sure that we're eating?
Okay, so if we go back to this nutritional label that we were discussing, you'll see on this dietary fiber of this processed food, there is 0 dietary fiber.
That's not enough, is it?
Not cool. So if we go to the recommended fiber per day, for men, it's around 30 grams of fiber. For women, it's around 25 grams of fiber. Now, I'm just telling you what right now. If any of you are getting that amount of fiber, congratulations, because you have got to be one of 5 people in the United States that actually have enough fiber. In fact, when Americans go to a higher fiber diet, there is usually a period of, a little bit of difficulty with the gut, responding appropriately to it, a little bit of crampy, a little bit of bloat.
And when we talk to patients about about adding some soluble fiber to their diet,
Whoa.
which is the most common soluble fiber that we add is psyllium or metamucil, things like that. We tell them that it takes about 2 weeks for the kind of bloating because your body just isn't used to actually getting the healthy amount of fiber.
Correct. So understand that if you change to a high fiber diet, which we do recommend having a significant amount of fiber every day, because that fiber, it swells in the gut and attaches to all of this garbage and gets it out of your body. Good?
No, say, and you're going to talk about it, the 2 different types.
That's what I was just going to say.
Sorry, doctor.
So the 2 different types of fiber, this is a really, really important topic. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I think I've mentioned it a million other times, but I'm going to say it again. There are a lot of people who don't understand this difference.
There's a lot of doctors that don't understand the difference.
Correct. And so I want you to understand that there are 2 main groups of fiber, soluble and insoluble. Soluble fiber is the type that you eat and your body is able to digest it.
It becomes kind of like a gel on the inside of your body until it gets absorbed.
Yes. So examples, avocados, black beans, broccoli.
Green apples.
Yes. Those are all forms of
Psyllium.
soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber are those things like celery, corn.
Isn't celery what we call the toothbrush of the colon?
There was a 1950s ad that did say that. Thank you, Sabrina, for sending that to us. Cauliflower, those are foods that have insoluble fiber, and insoluble fiber is actually fiber molecules that are not able to be broken up and digested in the body. And so sometimes they get stuck and sometimes they go straight through you and they're not even processed at all.
Why isn't it unsoluble?
I don't know. Whatever.
Well, flammable and inflammable mean the same thing. But soluble and insoluble are opposites.
Okay, help me, people. Send me a lifeline. So soluble fiber is really where it's at. And there are very good sources online. If you look up examples of soluble fiber, you can find some good, actually, maybe we should put that link out that we have.
We had one on our MG Wellness site.
We probably do, but we should probably post that again because there's a very, very good list of foods with soluble fiber that are very, very healthy for you. So that's the recommended daily fiber amount.
So what?
I'm sorry.
Go for it.
No, go
nope,
ahead.
Dr. John, all yours.
No, all I was going to say is this is an average. There are certain situations when you need more fiber, less fiber. Women who are pregnant, because there's two, need more. Women who are lactating, that's breastfeeding for those that didn't know the word. In other words, the guys in the audience, mostly, Bruce, need even more fiber.
Yes.
And so...
And there are some gut conditions where you have to be super, super careful about the amount of fiber and the type of fiber. So just understand that these are general guidelines. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Nate.
No, that's good because you're talking about knowing the amounts of fiber. When you're watching something like that, where a good portion of your fiber is hopefully coming from whole foods, where you don't have this piece of asparagus has 7.6, or whatever, and you're calculating how important is it to hit those goals and those ideas close to it, and can you eat too much? I mean, we always hear, well, you've had too much fiber and you're running to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Yes, these are general guidelines. This is the point. Like I said before, there are very few of us in the United States who are having adequate fiber. So make it a goal to add fiber to your diet and add soluble fiber because that is
Like
what
the
is really
asparagus.
helpful.
The broccoli, the
your gut.
Brussels sprouts,
Yes.
the green apple. Should I say thee instead? Thee and thou?
Kill me, beat me, shoot me.
Wherefore art thou, Kelly?
So let's, because when I'm thinking of putting that perfect diet together, and you're eating, mostly greens, and we can't even get meat these days. Though I'm going to talk about that in a second. Bring that up because those things don't have labels either sometimes, except for the ones that we're
going to talk about those. We'll talk about them.
But because as I saw posted by our local meat market, that's an organic meat market here, Kincaid's here in town, they were like, we're not anywhere low on meat because we process it ourselves. So, but that's a whole nother comment. So, but when you're putting these perfect things together, like like you said, these whole foods, they don't have the numbers. So when you're trying to hit a number of fat, where do you get the numbers when you're trying to make the best judgment? And you've been told by your doctor you should have your sodium between lower than X, and you're eating all these foods.
Well, we can get into that. So Dr. Kelly may disagree, and so I probably shouldn't even say this, but basically,
here he goes.
This is going to be fun. Please say it. This will be fun.
But if you're eating a whole foods diet, you're going to be in the right ranges for fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And you're going to be getting the right types of fats. You're going to be getting the right types of carbohydrates, the complex. You're going to be getting the right types of fiber, both soluble and insoluble, if you eat a rainbow diet like we talk about all the time.
Yes, it would be very, very hard to eat a strict whole foods diet and not achieve those goals. There is a simple way to find out, and it's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close, to find out the fiber amount in any food. And it is literally to Google it.
Oh, I thought you could say, see if it floats.
No. It is literally just to type it in, amount of fiber per serving or something, and then it will show you exactly how much fiber has been calculated to be in an average serving of whatever you're looking up.
If you're eating whole foods,
Yes, that's what we just said.
especially if you're eating organic whole foods, you cannot get too much sodium. So we always hear doctors, especially cardiologists, going, oh, you need, for your high blood pressure, you need a low sodium diet. Well, the giant studies that were done on that, and another one just came out, show you can only lower the numbers by 3 to 5 points.
The numbers.
Your diastolic blood pressure.
Your lower number of your blood pressure, if you lower your sodium in your diet, you change your lower number on your blood pressure very, very minimally.
So you may go from 90 to 87. And they've also realized that the numbers that they're using now are way too low and may actually be causing problems.
Yeah, they're always changing. But this is the point. I think that let's go back to the original point that you were making. If you're eating whole foods, then you're not going to be getting too much sodium in your diet. The reason that there are high levels of sodium in our diet is because we in America are eating processed food.
It's the ites and the eights.
Yes.
It's not salt that you're putting. I mean, yes, some people put a ton of salt. I know someone that actually coats their steak in salt. Anyway, you cannot, it's hard to get too much salt that way.
What's really dangerous is to have processed foods
and then salt it
that have a lot of salt in them, then covering it in salt. But if you're salting your roasted vegetables that you just bought in the produce section
with a little Himalayan sea salt,
that's got great minerals in it, as well as some EVOO or some avocado oil or something like that, you're not going to have too much sodium in your diet.
You're not.
And I was just using sodium as an example, but see, that's where we go.
That's how we just get going, don't we?
So now let's talk about nutritional facts that are found at our restaurants, because they don't have labels, but they all are now required to be either provided for you. Sometimes now most of them hide it on their websites, about 6 pages deep, of what the general nutritional values of things when you're eating out and when you're ordering in. Now, if you're getting whole foods, then again, like you said, but when we're looking at things from restaurants, how much can we trust how close those are to, versus packaged goods, or even knowing generally what a, apple has in it and when it comes to fiber?
So in general, foods that you buy from a restaurant, they're going to have more sodium. They're going to have more processing because they're having to buy things in large quantities. And sometimes it's prepackaged and just warmed. And so it's been, 5 days in the truck. So that is a very real statement. Now, what I do when we go, I'm going to use Panera Bread as an example. When I go to Panera Bread, I know that a lot of those meats that they're going to put on a sandwich, they're going to be processed. So they're going to have a lot of sodium in them. And if they're going to put that processed meat on a piece of white bread, I can pretty much count on the fact that white bread is going to be made from enriched flour. Now they're going to have some breads that are going to sound really lovely, like 7-grain bread or something like that. I have literally asked them if they have labels that I can read. They kind of look at me like I'm a freak, but I don't really care.
Look at you that way. That's usually me that gets that.
I stay away from the breads because it's really, really hard.
And deli meats, unless they are just fresh sliced.
Yes, unless I can actually see the turkey, the bird itself, being cut. But that's not what's happening at Panera Bread. Now, one thing that Panera Bread offers that I think is on the scale of really bad versus kind of okay, they have these new Baja bowls that have brown rice and quinoa. They have avocado. They have black beans, tomatoes. I ask for it without any cheese, and they put some sour cream on it and just get that out of there. And they'll put a little bit of chicken on there. It's not a whole lot. But those in general have whole pieces of food that you can actually see that it is avocado. It is tomato. It's a recognizable whole food. That doesn't mean that it's organic. I get that. But if you're in a situation where you have to choose something from a place like that, choose something where you can actually see the pieces of food, if that makes sense. Yes?
That makes lots of sense. So let's talk about, what does this look like? We know this is reading these labels is regulated in the U.S. What does it mean internationally if people are traveling internationally? And what do we know about the nutritional labels around the world? Let's say in places like Europe, Asia, Africa. John, I know, is there any way to read nutritional?
Well, I'm going to say in Europe, this is what we do know, and I've mentioned this many times. I'm going to say it again. Our FDA, that is supposed to be protecting us, does a very, very poor job. And this is not just my opinion, but it is a widely proven opinion that out of 80,000 additives that can be added into foods, our FDA only bans 14.
11.
Oh, yeah, it's down to 11. Used to be 14, down to 11.
Deregulation at its best.
I mean, that is crazy. The European Union bans 1,400 different additives. And so this is a true statement. The European foods tend to be much healthier versions. There are many, many additives that are banned there that are not banned here. And because of that, we have had friends who have felt terrible on foods from the United States, go on a vacation to Europe for a couple of weeks, splurge, have a great time, feel so much better because they are not eating inflammatory, bad, toxic additives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have a post several months back that looks at the difference between what goes into American foods and what goes into, it was UK specifically at that point. And what's interesting about it, just like you're saying, we're not saying these are healthy, but they put more unhealthy things in American foods.
Oh, by far. I mean,
high fructose corn syrup is the biggest one, where they use a lot of cane sugar still.
Right.
And not saying that cane sugar is good for you. It's not. But it's a lot better for you than high fructose corn syrup.
Right. I think in Africa, what you see is just there's an inability to grow a lot of produce.
Yeah, and
it's not distributed around the country.
Right. And the biggest issue with most of Africa, unless you're in South Africa, is you have to be careful just because of water.
Yeah, the water sourcing is terrible.
We're not able to handle what you can. And we have to honestly bleach the water, bleach any food.
Yeah. So that's a different situation. But certainly in Europe, the food is much less toxic that they're putting on the shelves.
Yeah, I've never seen a study, which would be very interesting, to look at same produce grown in Africa versus the United States.
In terms of nutritional value?
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that has happened with our modern farming techniques is that the nutrient value of the food that we grow now is about 10 times less than it was for our grandparents. So this is the example I always use. If you were going to get the same nutrient value out of oranges that your grandma got when she had an orange, she would have one orange, and you would have to eat 8 to 10 oranges to get the same nutritional value. Because we have stripped things of such, we have stripped the soil of such nutrients that even our plants struggle to grow. Mm-hmm. And so this is another example I was going to give about the European Union. 90+% of soybeans here in the United States are genetically modified
Excellent
to
point.
be able to produce more. In Europe, there is almost no genetically modified
And
soy.
in Africa, there's a lot of genetically modified crops. In Europe, they've banned all GMO crops. United States allows it. Africa allows it. Parts of Asia allow it. Canada is actually allowing genetically modified animals starting this year to be
consumed.
To be consumed. So be careful where you get more. Another reason not to get farmed fish, because that's what they will be. They will be farmed fish that are genetically modified.
Right. So if you want cleaner food, less toxic food, it's not necessarily perfect, but cleaner food definitely in Europe.
All right. And May asks, bring that up there. Is this true even when you pick the orange right from the tree?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
It is.
I mean, it may not be the same in your yard, knowing where you live. It may not be the same in your yard versus an orange grove where they're harvesting. But if you go into an orange grove, down in the Central Valley.
Yeah, where their intent is to produce
oranges.
Tons and tons and tons and tons.
That's what the data came from. So what they actually did, there were a couple studies out of actually one of the UC schools where they took the exact same plot of land 50 years apart and studied oranges and beans. And they showed how much the nutritional value had dropped in 50 years. It was unbelievable.
But if you have your own orange tree and you are picking oranges off of it, you probably have a little bit more nutritional value. Yep.
Unless you've been harvesting them for 50 years, and I don't think you have. Because you're only 25, right, May?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, and May follows up, what if it says organic at a fruit stand?
So
Better.
It's better. And honestly, markets, fruit stands, a little farmer stand on the corner of their mass acreage, I'll tell you that's going to be better. Now, one of the things you worry about is, and organic should cover this, one of the things you worry about is getting things that have had a lot of pesticides, herbicides sprayed on them. But organic, you should be able to trust that has been grown without herbicides and pesticides.
And Bruce wants to make sure you know that in Cote d'Ivoire you can get a great salad, but it's a lot of work. So,
and we all know who the chef is.
But
it is a lot of work.
So let's talk nutritional when you're reading a package from a meat source. And that's certainly in the news right now, not so much the nutritional facts, but what are things you're looking that are different in a meat source to make sure some of those additives you mentioned earlier, and then let's even go into what we're seeing as some people are worried about that meat actually is, going to be hard to come by, which I don't think is actually probably that big of a problem. We'll be all right. But
yep.
All right.
What's interesting is what you're saying, Nate, is if you actually read that the farmers are actually saying that they have an excess of cattle, pigs, and chickens. Anyway, so you want to stick with organically raised animals, and you want to stick with not even free ranged, but what's the term for the chickens that I'm missing? Because and Dr.
Pasture
raised.
Pasture raised is where they have I made a post about this.
Free range or pasture raised, not cage free.
Yes, not cage free. Cage free for chickens means that they have a little bit larger than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper to roam.
Their whole life.
Their whole life. It's horrendous. See our posts about that. Honestly, as I was writing the posts about eggs and chickens and all of that, it's just, I don't know, it's disturbing. But,
It's really a cluck up.
okay. So anywho, oh my word. Now they're both participating in it. Please. So,
At least we weren't talking about ducks. Because that really quacks me up.
Bruce, help me, help me, help
This is
me.
trouble over here. All right, going back. All right, back to our meats and the eggs and all those, and how what are we looking at, the nutritional facts when we look at it, and why is it really probably not that big of an issue that we're gonna have less processed foods in our grocery stores of meat?
Well, that's the big thing. We're going to have less processed foods. The organically raised beef, chicken are going to be available.
Yes.
And honestly,
So that's a good thing.
even though everybody loves a really thick pork tenderloin, you should probably never eat pork. Pork has ridiculously high amounts of bad fats. I don't care if it's organically raised or not. There's so much fat in it that it does overwhelm the system.
And that is true of lamb.
Lamb has less than pork, but it's a lot.
Yes. Duck.
Duck is between lamb and beef. Then there's beef, and then you have to look for the levels of beef. Organically raised beef is going to be your best bet.
Grass fed.
Organically raised, grass-fed, free-range,
No
pasture-raised.
antibiotics.
No, and by definition, if it's organic, there are no antibiotics or hormones. Same with the chicken. Same with bison. Bison is always going to be leaner than beef. Big thing is, I am not completely anti-meat. That's not the point, because we do every once in a while. However, just based on how our bodies react to it and how our gut microbiome reacts to it, you should limit the amount of beef you have to probably beef or bison to probably once a week, because it does affect our gut microbiome.
Yes.
By definition, all pork and chicken have to have urine tests or blood tests that are antibiotic free when they leave their farms. However, that doesn't mean they didn't have them in their body. It just means it's not showing up on the urine or blood.
The other thing and this isn't necessarily only about meats, but if you are looking at packaging and it says natural basically means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. In fact, I suspect more toxic substances have been added to things that have natural on the label. So I don't even like that word.
Oh, and like you were talking, whatever's on the front of a box or a bag.
Yeah, you have to be very, very suspect about it. Now, if it says that the product is organic, that means by USDA standards, it has to be 95+% raised in an organic fashion. Okay, that's as close as you're going to get. If something says that it is made with organic ingredients, don't buy it. That means that it is only required to have 70% organic ingredients, 30%, so almost a third of whatever it is can be toxic. So made with organic ingredients, no. When it says organic, that's as good as you're going to get.
And so, back to Nate's question, if you stick with organic meats, they're going to be available.
Yeah, they're going to be available.
Because it's the processing plants
that are having a difficult time. So maybe that'll make a good change for us here in the US of A.
All right, so a couple questions here. One, as you mentioned, gut and microbiome, I opened my kombucha.
Yay.
To make sure. And it says it's organic, and it mentions that it's certified by a third party. This one is, I gotta get the light on it here, Organic Certifiers Incorporated. That's like, they came up with a fancy name for that one. Organic Certifiers Incorporated, these third-party certifications of organic. Do we know anything about that? And because I mean, you see that now that the USDA didn't certify this organic, that they're using third parties. What do we know about that?
I know that some of them have been proven to be good, and some of them have not. And so I don't actually know that one. It sounds impressive, and it sounds relatively boring, like maybe it was created by a bunch of food nerds, and so that's encouraging to me.
In other words, we're going to be doing a post about it, I bet.
Yes, we will.
No, I think that's good. All right, and then Sue asks, I'll bring this up on the screen. Grow your own food, she said.
Yes.
She says, we've now been cleared to buy seeds in Michigan.
Yay.
I'm not sure what that means, but
Oh, they weren't.
They weren't able to.
oh, Michigan couldn't even buy seeds. That's right.
Yeah,
I don't
yep.
know
Yep.
Yes, now I got it. Yes. Should we buy organic seeds? That's the question.
Yes, Mama.
Yes, to make sure they're not GMO.
Yep, for sure. Buy organic seeds.
Because if you don't, not that you're probably planting soybeans, but you might if you like edamame or mucamame. Soybeans, corn, cotton, probably not planting that, but corn you may plant, and 95% plus of corn in the United States is GMO. So get organic.
But get some tomatoes and some green bell peppers and some, I don't know, what do you want? Broccoli,
Brussels,
cabbage. Oh,
And
yeah.
then you can ferment the cabbage and make
Oh,
sauerkraut.
yeah. Let's do that.
There we go. All right. So Lance asks here. Let me bring this one up here.
Lance.
He asks, how about the
Arizona.
breed of the cow? I've heard that European cattle have weird accents. No, he didn't say that. So probably are less GMO and are better digestive and metabolic, better on our digestive and metabolic
Yes.
system.
Absolutely.
Yes, for the same reasons that we were talking about. Their food sourcing is just better.
Yeah,
It's just better.
Just like us eating bad food, our animals eat worse food.
Yes, because they're corn fed, herbicides, pesticides, antibiotics, growth hormones, all this kind of jazz. You know, the herbicides and pesticides are on the corn that they're eating.
Yeah. And so
we're not only getting herbicides and pesticides from the fruits and vegetables that we're consuming that are not organic, but we're also getting all the effects of herbicides and pesticides that are coming through animal sourcing.
and what has been shown in a lot of studies is that the further up the food chain, the more bad things are collected. They're not knocked out through the system. The other part of it is, and Nate and I have talked about this several times, and we're talking about different accents, not European accents here, but Kobe and Wagyu beef, they there's a reason they taste completely different than your typical American beef. The
They
way
get
they're treated.
massages.
They do get massages,
Don't we? I mean, we just all want to be treated like a Wagyu and just get that massage.
except for the end.
Yeah. Well, you know, sometimes that.
Sometimes that's okay because you're so relaxed, you don't even care. No, they get massages.
I believe that was called Carousel in the movie.
Yes.
At age 35.
Grass fed.
But they're grass fed. They're treated humanely. They're allowed to move around.
Yes, they have places to
And it
roam.
completely changes because when you live your life stuck in a cage or in a pen where you can't move, the food is stress because the stress hormones are elevated forever, and so it does affect the meat.
Yes, it absolutely does. And then we are consuming all of that.
Exactly.
And we wonder why we have so much illness in the U.S.
I don't think we wonder anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
Well, we'll let Bruce get his word in edgewise. He says, John, please don't be foul. All right. So,
Whack me up, Bruce.
all right. And Janice planted her garden yesterday, and I think everybody's that's good. Now let's talk about, because man, the hour goes fast. It's 8:57 p.m. And we want to highlight something that's starting out with May 1st as we come to a new month on Friday. And do you guys want to tell us a little bit about May you be healthy.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about dancing around the maypole.
No, we are going to do a 31-day challenge of sorts, and we want you guys to join us. It's called May You Become Healthy. Isn't that cute? Anyway,
31 days to a better you, as they see that on the screen right now.
yes, and we want you to join us for this. Now, it's going to include lots of different challenges for you to choose from. We're going to give you a list of lots of different things that you can do. One of our missions in MG Wellness has been to encourage you to take a step toward a healthier you. Not to run a marathon, not to never enjoy one piece of food ever again, but to literally take one step toward a healthier you. And so we're going to give you lots of different challenges that you could do for the month of May. And we'd love for you to join us. We'll have different posts and different contests. And there might even be some MG Wellness loot at the end of the month.
And so we have May Day, and then we have...
Oh, we have so many things. Don't tell them. It's
Yeah,
a surprise.
but what you need to do right now is follow what's on the site right there. Go to mayyoubecomehealthy.online. That is .online. If you go to .com, we didn't buy that domain because it's cheaper.